Welcome everybody to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we're joined by Geoff from Noravera, a video production company based out of Vancouver, BC. His production company focuses on creating beautiful, emotional, and engaging stories. Welcome, Geoff.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So how is it over in BC right now? Is it getting a little bit hectic right now as we're jumping into spring, out of the winter caves we're all kind of emerging right now, right?
Yeah, it's still wet. Still very wet over here, but things are picking up. Things are good. It's usually, like you guys, probably slows down a little bit every kind of January, February, but things are ramping up for us, and it's nice to just be it feels like reality is kind of starting to be back, which is awesome. So starting to see some faces more often.
Do you have like those slow and fast cycles? Because we thought we had them. We're like, oh yeah, every December to, I would say, March or February was very slow for us.
Yeah.
But then this year was like the total opposite. And I think even last year didn't happen either. And the more people we were talking to, like some people have those cycles, some people don't. For some people, it's just busy all year round, or it's a different variation of that.
Yeah, it's something that we've been trying to figure out, and we've had numbers tracked for like a few years now, like 4 or 5 years, and some years it like has stayed busy right through, but it usually, like, more than not, will dip a little bit or slow down. We tend to work with other agencies, so they're usually starting their conversations with clients like once the new year kind of kicks off, and then once those plans of how to move forward, then they'll reach out to us to start like planning the video or producing the video side of things. So it tends to slow down for a month and a bit.
Good time to take a vacation.
Yeah. not the last couple of years, but I have 2 little ones, so 2-year-old and an 11-month-old. So it's been pretty close to home.
You got several full-time jobs going on right now then, right?
Most definitely.
So Geoff, why don't you give us
I was going to ask the exact same question. Jinx.
We're a little too synced. Go, Dario, you go.
I was going to ask that. Like, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on who you are and how you started Noravera?
Sounds good. Noravera started basically, videos have always been a passion of mine. I grew up, my dad always says I was more engaged with the TV commercials than I was the actual shows, and I've always just really paid attention to creative and just things that are visual. And I grew up filming skiing and mountain biking with my friends, and I pirated a editing software, I think in grade 8, that my friend sent to me. So I started to edit some things and put some videos together, and just really loved it. And I was riding mountain bikes pretty hard and just wanted to see where I could kind of go with that. But when guys started like flipping step downs, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like film this and then kind of see what I can do with that, just without putting my life on the line. And then I went to Capilano College at the time, now Capilano University, took interactive design, did a little bit of web design, graphic design. My graphic design teacher told me that the business card I did was one of the worst that she's ever seen. So it's just like, okay, I'm gonna stick to the video side of things, as that was always where I excelled in things. And I ended up working for a company called RIP TV, which was an action sports online television network. It was coming out kind of when YouTube started, so they were trying to create the place where everyone goes to with their own player for watching news about action sports and things like that. They were a startup. They ended up running out of money. I got laid off. I went to BCIT and ended up getting my business degree. And from there I did 4 years. And my longtime friend Brian Cece, we went to preschool together and kind of were friends all the way along. He was super creative with the camera, and I was more on like the business kind of side of things. So I would always kind of be camera and do editing and things like that. But we were just getting asked a bunch of questions from people, or just started doing real estate videos. We did weddings for about 4 years, and we're just like, let's give this a shot and see what can happen. I also didn't really want to do the whole resume and apply for jobs kind of thing.
Real estate and weddings. That's where everyone gets their gets started. And
It's always it's always like the first kind of like initiation step. But one thing I really found funny that you mentioned is that when you were younger, you really focused a lot more on the commercial side, on the commercials rather than the actual shows. So I'm guessing
Yeah.
when the Super Bowl comes around, you're tuning out for everything except for that halftime show with all the ads, right?
Yeah, I always really enjoy seeing like how creative things get, and it's pretty wild how expensive that is for just like that 30 seconds, but it works. And now with YouTube, and just you get more views from there than you do probably on the television. But it's yeah, I like the commercials for sure.
I heard it was like roughly a few million per second if you wanted to advertise on the Super Bowl.
Really?
So
Yeah.
a few
every
million.
second is it's like maybe like 1 to 5 million roughly. I think it was the expense for every second that you want to get on the Super Bowl because of all the
Crazy.
eyeballs that are there. And
Yeah.
I really liked Reddit's ad where they literally just got like 1 second with the whole kind of message that they had. I forget exactly what it was, but it was basically to get people to Google the Reddit ad. And then once they read it afterwards, I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty genius. You know, you literally get the bare minimum of 1 second for an effective ad, right? You got to be creative, right?
Totally.
Probably
Yeah,
use up their whole
absolutely.
budget for the year if it's like 1 to 5 million per second.
And so 30 seconds, take that in. That could be like
Yeah.
over 50 to 100 million just to use the ad. Not even the production aspect. That's just for the airtime.
My
Totally.
God.
Crazy.
Question. So, tell us a bit about the transition going from doing like a lot of real estate, a lot of weddings, into doing more corporate work. Because I feel like that's probably something that a lot of starting production companies are trying to figure out, and some of them probably will never figure it out fully. So I'm just curious to see how you did it.
For us, it was just like continuing to work at it, and like meeting different people, like doing free work to get in and create opportunities and network. And for us, we worked for another wedding company for like 4 years, and we just really wanted to start creating ideas versus like capturing a day and filming something that's already pre-planned and then putting something together. We wanted to, yeah, have an idea, pitch it, create it, and then be able to market it and work with companies that way. You can hear my daughter downstairs. I think she might be coming up.
All good. Don't worry.
Okay, we'll have another special guest on the show, right?
Yeah, she might show up here in a second.
No worries.
Was that like how long did it take? So how exactly did you do that? Did you okay, so you started pitching more to businesses? Like, did you start doing like cold outreach, or how did that work?
We never did cold outreach. Even today, it's something that like I always hate receiving cold calls, so I never really want to do cold calls. So we're continually trying to figure out other ways to approach people and make new connections. But it was word of mouth. Brian, he worked with a company and still does, called Obaki. They've just done an amazing campaign raising a bunch of money for the Ukraine. But he filmed their fashion shows. They used to do fashions, now they're fashion and clothing, and now they're doing more just different things you can purchase from merchants around the world and helping market and promote those. But yeah, that kind of got him into that space, and he got connected with a company called Milk Shirts, which they filmed in a Fairmont hotel, which then got him connected to someone at Fairmont, and we did something for a coffee shop that they had in one of their hotels, and then it turned into more there. So we had the Fairmont name as one of our clients, and that started to become more reputable for us. And it just kind of happened organically in that way. I was a part of the Vancouver Board of Trade and a program called Leaders of Tomorrow, where I was just met a bunch of people through there who someone ended up working for BC Dairy. So we got connected through that to them through another agency. And it's just, it's a slow process, but it just kind of evolves over time. It's quite surprising. And if we've always like done good work, haven't been jerks about things, just tried to make it as enjoyable and fun for our clients as possible, and just being as open and transparent as we possibly can for all of our projects and whenever we're communicating things. And it's just kind of it's grown from there.
Yeah, trying to network organically to, grow your list of leads just seems to be like, I mean, for me, it seems like one of the best ways to do it. We haven't
Most
really done
challenging though,
most challenging.
It's
Like
slow, but
yeah, the slowest and most challenging, but I feel like it's also
but
the
most
best,
effective.
most effective, right? Because doing cold outreach, we've had a couple of guests on that do that, and for them it works. But I feel like
But it's volume
it's
based. They're
yeah,
very,
it has to be
again,
volume based. So you don't know
it
who you're gonna
depends
get
on
at
how
the end
much
of the day.
time.
Yeah.
It really depends on how much time you have, and I guess it depends on also like the structure of the organizations, right? So if you have a team of people where you have like one person that's dedicated to just simply cold outreach, it's a lot easier to be able to incorporate that strategy because of that. Whereas if you're doing a mix of other roles as well, it's a little bit harder to take the time to just sit down for 3-4 hours a day and just only be doing cold outreach when you have other projects mounting, creative briefs that you need to get to, sales. It really varies, but like you said, it's the most effective is it's slow, but it's very effective.
Yeah, it's whenever you can get it referred in from someone that they know and trust, it's going to be much easier to start that conversation. That's for sure.
Yeah, you've really grown your team into a pretty tight knit bunch of like a roughly 10 people now on your team you have.
Yep. Yeah, we're 9 people. Like we're looking to bring on a couple more. But yeah, that's again just kind of grown organically as we've needed to. It started with Brian and I, and we just started getting busier and busier, and we put it at an ad on Craigslist, and ended up John, who's now part owner of the company and our creative director, and he's still just sent out something that was funny and some related to the movie Office Space. Okay, let's go meet this guy. And he had some editing talents that we didn't have, and he just like, hey, do you guys ever like think about like having a director on your projects? And we're just like, yeah, that would be like a good idea versus just kind of setting up, doing some interviews and kind of building it later. But he's John's been a real solid guy to have on our team. And we brought on another editor when we needed help, and another editor, and then we brought in project managers to kind of help things. And it's been an ever evolving process. And that was that
And
stage
they're all
was
full-time?
full-time, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
We shifted now.
So, sorry, how long ago did you and your business partner decide to start the business? I guess not working on the real estate and the videos, but like focusing more on corporate. How long ago was that?
That's 10 years. Like I think
It's been
next
10 years.
month.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started. I graduated from ECIT April 2012, and just kind of started it from there. And then Brian got back. He was traveling in India at the time, and got back maybe end of April or May, and we had a couple beers on the back of my patio and just tried to come up with a name, and ended up coming up with Noravera, which we've created Nora out of Nord, is north in French, and Vera is true in Latin. So north, true north. Just wanted something that we could that could change with us and not be Brian and Geoff Video Vancouver, like just like real siloed for things, because we knew that we'd have to change and evolve throughout the years.
Most SEO optimized name possible, right? You were just describing.
For sure.
That's funny. So at what point did you guys start to grow the team to where it is now? Because was it just like each year you just had like one extra person, or did you get to a point where you're just adding, you're like, okay, I think we need to bring on like 5 people? Like, did you ever have one of those type of growth spurts in hiring?
Yeah, it was kind of add one and like another. There was probably year 4 or 5, we brought on like 2 people like quite quickly. And that was like an interesting time for me, because that's when I really started to struggle. Like I was always like the point person from the clients, and have to get information to the team for them to be able to execute. And there's a major disconnect there. So that's when I started to do some research, and I actually found out that I had ADHD. So there was a real like disconnect of being able to bring the information in, keep it organized, and be able to pass it along. So that was a real like turning point for me in my life to, yeah, kind of go down that path and learn more, and still every day trying to figure out how to work with it more and learn techniques to stay on track and stay focused.
I feel like sometimes I have that because there's like so many things we got to do, and it's like I start focusing on one thing. I'm like, okay, I'll go focus on the other thing now, and then you'll do that for like 5 minutes. You're like, what about the other thing I got to work on? You go back and forth. You're like, I can't, like, I'm getting nothing done, but you're still getting something done at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. It's
you got to check things off. You know, you got to have the list of things to do, and then kind of stick to it, and that kind of helps to make sure that everything kind of gets through the day. But yeah, like there's always like 10 things to do. You know, there's like a client project, and then it has like its own subset of tasks that you need to do. Then you have like, you know, the accounting and the taxes, and there's also a couple more tasks that you need to do there. Then pitching, selling, the whole works, right?
Absolutely. How do you guys build out your team? If you don't mind me asking a quick question for it. Like, do you have, like you mentioned, accounting and taxes? Do you have anyone helping you guys out with that, or are you trying to manage and kind of do that all? You're doing all that?
Yeah. No, like I'll be honest with you. Up until I would say last year, our accounting was a disaster, like an absolute mess. And Joe, don't try to like make it sound rosy, because it wasn't. It was so bad. And like, I mean, you know what? Like we weren't mature enough for it. But then like we sat down last year and we like became like vigilant. Like everything, as soon as like something happened, like you immediately add it to the Excel file and everything. We do have our accountant, Howard Silverberg, that we go to. We've been going to for several years now. And I still remember the first time we went there, like the look on his face. I feel like he was this close to just yelling at us because everything was just such a bad mess. We had to go back 3 times. And it was, I was like, okay, after the 3rd time, he's not gonna, if we can't get it right this time, he's not gonna like answer our calls anymore, right? But anyways, after that, we kind of like we've been using Howard. He does our taxes for our business and our personal. So it's mainly us doing all that. We're planning on incorporating this year, so I don't know what that's going to be like. I haven't really done any research into it. I just know it's the next step we got to do. Yeah, but I gotta, add that to the list.
Happy to chat offline about that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta add that to the list of growing tasks we got to do.
Yeah, but aside from that aspect as well, like obviously with any business, there's so many different roles. Dario and I have basically set ourselves up to be able to run things as if, like each of us are able to take it on. So for example, I would take on 3 to 5 clients. Dario can take on 3 to 5 clients if need be. That way, we're not needed to be both on every single project. That way we can kind of maximize the amount of work that we have going on at the same time. Because essentially it's just the 2 of us at the moment that is full-time, and we have a team of freelancers that we bring on, depending on the needs of the project, how big it is, what resources are needed. We would have like one editor on one project, another one on another. And then we just kind of like be managing a lot of aspects of that. But yeah, we've kept it very skeletal, our crew up at this moment, until we get more of a natural growth.
We need those retainer projects. We need those retainer projects. I think once we start getting those and we have that consistent income, then we can bring on like expand. Number one, I think is an editor, and then after that, some project coordinator, and then from there we'll just see. But I think those 2 are the 2 roles we'd love to, the first 2 right away.
Yeah, it's those are the types of roles that like we've built the team out as. Like we did have like internal like cinematographers. Pre-COVID, we restructured things just with everything kind of shutting down for this spring 2020 for us, which has worked out quite well. We still work with the same like DOPs and cinematographers, and when we weren't having shoots all the time, obviously they'd have to edit, and which isn't they're good at it, but they're wanting to focus more on the cinematography and the filming aspect of things. So it's worked out well for them to just be able to work with other clients and continually improving that skill set. But having the coordinators, the project manager, producers in-house, it is quite a consistent like workload for them with all the communications, and same with editing. You go shoot for a day or 2 days for a project, and then it's a week or 2 or 3 for the post side of things. So I think that's a good way to go about it for you guys as well. Just try to bring on people to do the things that you don't want to do, and the things that you can, that people might have more skills at you then, for sure.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, is finding that talent where, you know, people can come in with a diverse kind of background and experiences and, you know, skill sets that you don't necessarily have. I feel like sometimes a lot of people are always in this mindset of trying to find people like them to work with, which can be good for certain parts of the job, but sometimes depending on the role, like if you want to bring on another producer, what can this other producer essentially add to your business that you know, can elevate you? And that's like a question I feel a lot of companies and entrepreneurs need to be thinking about. It's like, how does this role, like what can this role be? Who can come into this role that can essentially elevate the whole business? That is like the question that everyone needs to be asking themselves when hiring new talent.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've just brought on 2 senior producers this last fall that have really elevated our game and experience from agency standpoint and just having money conversation standpoint. Me never working in a large agency, it's kind of just, like I mentioned, like grown organically, and it's scary to put like big budgets out there. Like it's numbers I never would have imagined, like when we first started, that I'd be working on budgets the size that we are. And it's just, you still have that like, okay, let's send it out. But it's it's necessary. And it's now like working with the team that we have now, just talking through it and like me questioning it. It's okay. It's like, is this necessary? And it's like, yeah, it is. It takes time to do the work that we do and be able to provide the quality that our clients expect from us when they come to us to for their final result.
So what has been like the number? What has been the scariest number? I'm just curious.
we pitched one. Hi, Linnea. I'll say hi. This is my daughter. Here she is.
Hello.
But yeah, we've had a few big numbers, like in the quite, like we had one for 800K earlier this year. That was,
wow,
it was pretty big. So
Oh my
we didn't win
God.
that one. That was with a client down in the States. But yeah, it's getting up there when you're starting with projects that are $500, $1,000 kind of thing. It really changes.
Add a couple zeros.
That's
right?
literally
Exactly.
literally 10 times our biggest number that we've had. And we thought that was like, when we sent it, we double checked the invoice like 10 times. We're like, okay, everything's good, right?
Yeah.
It all makes sense. Like we thought this out there early. Okay, send it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're double checking the numbers. I'm like, is this what everything's really adding to? Especially if it's a volume-based project, right? Because then you start, like the numbers don't seem as much. It's like, okay, so this is how much it'll be for shoot day. This is how much we're editing for the video. Times how many videos? What, 80? Okay, and put in the calculator. Oh wow.
I know.
It's like,
and
all right,
again, it adds up. It takes time, right? And it's like, yeah.
Wow. How many people did you have to involve in that big project?
That would have been like travel, like film on location somewhere for 3 weeks, like big kind of crew. It was like a whole like video series, like YouTube kind of 20-minute long episode series kind of thing. So I don't exactly remember the numbers, but it would have been a decent size team.
So you guys really do a whole mix of like the type of content that you do, like not only like the corporate commercial type projects and the other ones that you have, but also like these like full on series. Like how did you find pitching for like content series versus, you know, standalone commercial pieces or corporate video projects?
That was like that came to us. So we were asked to put a pitch together for that. But yeah, it really just ranges for like most of our work is inbound. So it's just kind of like assess and like work with the client, do a deep dive discovery and figure out what they're after. And then like we have tracked our like hours and projects for 4 or 5 years now. So we like really are quite dialed on how long it takes to do this type of project. And then it's like, okay, this project is essentially like 2 or 3 of these put together. So we'll kind of like add those numbers or buffer it a little bit, because it's, you know, that there's going to be efficiencies in communications once it's just like in the process and just going that way. But it's yeah, just all trying to get as much information. That's been mainly what I've been focused on the last like few years, is like tracking information, tracking hours, looking at our numbers, and just really trying to like smooth it out to be able to put a number and a pitch out there for our clients that's like, we believe that we need to the hours to do it, but also something that's not just like totally like unrealistic, because they'll just go with somebody else. So it's all, you really got to think through what the ROI is going to be for the client, where are they putting it, what are they expecting to get back from the work that we do.
Wow, you've
And
really
with that-
developed it into like a science, like down to like the hour. I've like we just started recently charging for like pre-production, and I didn't even think of like putting it down to like a amount of hours spent on that type of project. It's something we
Oh, I've been
we need to
thinking about
definitely
this
implement.
already.
We got to implement that. How do you even determine that? Like you just go like, okay, roughly I'm going to spend like 2 hours on the pitch, writing up the pitch for this, 3 hours on researching it. Like how do you break it down?
Yeah, it's not, so we don't go that granular, and we're even thinking about dialing back the time tracking on the pre-production side of things, because it is such a granular thing. It's like, or if you're spending 15 minutes on emailing this client, 15 minutes emailing this client, it's like, yeah, it just, are we spending too much time internally versus just actually doing the work for clients to try and get this much information and data, where we do have most of it tracked over the last few years now. So we have a good estimate, but it would be like 40 hours for pre-production, and then you have but day rates and things like that for shoot days, and then 20, 30, 40, 80 hours for post-production, depending on, yeah, which project it is.
I can't imagine with like that massive project how much time went into the pre-production side of things alone, right? I feel like that probably was maybe what, at least half of the budget, maybe even. Like who knows,
Yeah,
right? The amount of planning.
we didn't actually win that big project, but it's, if you guys are just starting to charge for pre-production now, I would increase your hours on that side of things for when you're pitching projects. It's a significant amount of time, and we've always kind of undervalued that. And we usually would put a number out there, and it would be often double the amount of hours that we estimated for the pre-production side of things. Because that's the more time you can put in up front to be sure of what you're going to be shooting, the more time that it saves you later, and the happier the client will be, because you've all agreed upon something at the start.
I actually have a bit of a like what is it? Not a role play necessarily, but like say a client comes to you and says, here is the script, here is the video plan, here is everything. We need you to produce this type of project, shoot it and edit it. But then, you know, when you give them the quote for the pre-production, because this has happened in the past that we've seen, and one thing we typically tell them is, you know, like the pre-production is still necessary to kind of you know, make sure everything is done right and go over everything. But like, have you ever experienced that too, where like you've given still a pre-production cost and then the client has just been like, but I planned it out, you don't need to be planning anything out, or something like that?
Yeah, it just comes down to the experience of things, I think, and how you have that conversation. We definitely have gotten pushback on budgets, like, why is this so expensive? And it's even though they have put together a script and like concept and all that, it may need some tweaks and changes, and then you still have to plan the like locations, or if there's talent, or all of these other things that do take time to put that together, even if it is presented to you fully written and scripted. So
Exactly. I mean, we have to become familiar with the project. We have to know what the vision is, understand it, and then make sure that what they're trying to do will actually work. Because the last thing you want to do is have someone come to you with an idea in mind, you execute it, but maybe they had something different in mind based on what you did and how you interpreted it. Like, you have to have those conversations and those plannings beforehand. Otherwise, they won't be happy with you, right? And that's managing expectations. That's the biggest key in our business, right? We have to really make sure we know how to properly do that. And pre-production is the best way to do that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit about your partnership. So your business partner is who's your business partner's name again?
Brian CC. We're not actually business partners anymore. I ended up buying him out in 2019. So it's partnerships it was great for 6 years or maybe 8 years almost. And it was totally necessary for us to get to where we are, but we had a bit of different visions of where we wanted the business to go, how we saw it moving forward. And I just had a great chat with him like a couple of days ago just about what his freelance kind of life is like now. And he's totally stoked. And it's an interesting thing when you start as a creative, and even for me, like, I don't do a lot of filming or I don't do a lot of editing anymore, and you start to miss that after a while. So he fell out of like the love of running an agency or kind of being that business owner in a way. So it's we ended up parting ways. It was not the easiest thing that we've ever had to deal with and go with. And yeah, we weren't the best of friends. I didn't talk for almost a year, maybe, like little bits here and there. But we both had our things that we need to figure out, and we've talked it through, and now we're good buds again. So it's and we hire him and still work with him for a ton of our projects. So it's great. And I think we both just needed a bit of time to just realize that it's when you're working together as friends, as business partners, money's involved. It's the stress of needing to like keep work coming in and pay for other people's living. There's a lot of stress that's involved in that, for sure.
What would you say is like, what do you mean by creative differences? Like, was it just like the types of projects you guys were starting to focus on? Is that it? Or
yeah, like they're like either going for like big projects or like small projects, trying to get into that like retainer, like social media model. And like we've even gone like back and forth like since then. That was 2018, 2019. But I think it just came down to us not fully agreeing on certain things, and we needed to make a change. It's it was necessary for ourselves and for the health and success of the business.
Yeah, butting heads. If you tend to butt heads too much and more often than agreeing on certain things, I guess that is usually like a good first tell sign of like, is this partnership really working? Is this sustainable for the business? Is with any business partnership, there's always going to be creative differences at times, but as long as you're able to come to a resolution at the end, which both parties can agree on, then usually that shouldn't be an issue. But if it's too much bumping of heads where one person thinks one way, the other one wants to do it another way, then if that happens way too often, then you have to ask those hard questions and make decisions, that, like you said, sometimes you just need a change as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was at a time in my life too, where like looking back now, I think I probably needed a break from just running an agency and us having that like dynamic. That was a bit of conflict. So I ended up doing a bike ride. I rode from Banff to Mexico through the Rocky Mountains and did it to raise a bunch of money for a nonprofit called Take a Hike Foundation in Vancouver. And we had a goal of doing it in 30 days and we ended up doing it in 38 days. But like the wildest thing out of all that is that we started riding in all the forest fires in 2018. So I developed quite a bad like cough, and like then getting up into Colorado, we're at 12,000 feet. So that cough was like just consistent. And I ended up having like a pain in my lower left abdomen. So when I came back home, I got an ultrasound to make sure that I was all good. I thought I might have had a hernia or something, and complete fluke, other side of my body. They found a tumor, and I had kidney cancer for about 4.5 years. So it was, right through all of that, where we kind of decided that we need to make a shift with the business. And I was just like, yeah, we got one shot at life here. Let's try and enjoy it as much as possible. So it was yeah, there's a lot that went into it. That's for sure.
Jesus. Yeah, like it's oh my God. That's hectic, man. That's quite the turning point over there. But
Yeah.
you're doing all good now?
So, doing good. Yep. That's
Yeah, that's good to hear.
4.5 years now. That's still cancer free. So got lucky, it didn't
That's
spread.
amazing.
Had half my
Congrats.
kidney taken out from surgery, and yeah, it's good to go.
Imagine though, if you didn't have that conflict or like the creative differences with your business partner, that you decided to carry on with the business, all was good, but you didn't do something that forced you to kind of get yourself checked out like that.
Totally.
The crazy thing about our industry is
Crazy.
that every little decision or major decision or anything like that has like a rippling effect that I've noticed.
Butterfly
Sometimes
effect.
it's like, yeah,
I wouldn't
exactly.
even say industry, I'd say life. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, every decision you make is just, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, stupid idea to bike to Mexico saved my life. It's
100%.
pretty wild.
I remember early on when I was starting to shoot, I remember I applied. Remember Mandy, when they used to put job postings back in the day, back in like 2013, 2014, I applied. This was early on when I was starting to shoot, and so same with Dario. And they needed a shooter for a wedding, this one company. So I applied to that. And then through them, I met other people that I've worked on other jobs, connected with another company, then another company who hired me on, what was it? Another wedding where I actually met my girlfriend at one of the weddings that we were filming. Whereas then a few of the shooters that I worked with there connected to other creatives who have connected us to other producers. It just keeps going, and who knows where it even goes, right? And it's just wild to see. And and kudos for you. You managed to catch something that was very life-threatening, and we're happy to hear that you're finally cancer-free too.
Yeah, thanks, man. That kind of like loops back to what we were talking about at the beginning with networking and how it just creates like that ripple effect of just, you get introduced to someone and you're a nice person and you're pleasant to be around, and you work hard, and people see that and they feel comfortable sharing your name around and spreading your name around, right? And it's how it all kind of works. And that was a big part of like doing the ride as well, is that it's like something different. It provided me a break from just the life of running an agency, just to go get healthy, like be fit. And we created a documentary around it as well called Shorten the Divide. So we just, hopefully that would be something that would help elevate our capabilities as a company. It like would help like elevate my name and provide a talking point to chat with you guys about it, right? So it's a bit the gamble. Like I didn't know what was going to come out of it, and yeah, cancer came out of it. So it's just crazy, something completely out of left field that it felt like the right decision to do, and it clearly was.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, on a lighter hearted note, why don't you tell us about the podcast you had going on?
Yeah, we had Tape It Till You Make It was a podcast we started up last year, and yeah, it was just something that the team was interested in getting going. I've wanted to get one going for a while. We've kind of been on and off with it, like throughout COVID, and trying to get people in, and started mainly internally just because people weren't comfortable coming in, and but it's just as you guys are know, and as you're doing it, it's an easy way to have great conversations and learn and provide value and share information with people. So it's something that we need to get going again for sure.
Get marketable content, it's again, they're advertisements for the business in a way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember checking it out on the website. I'm like, oh, they have a podcast. And I checked the last date. I'm like, oh, they stopped it in September of 21. What's going on here? Like,
yeah,
you got to start it up again.
Remember, it's the fiscal year ending in September, so everyone's gonna stop what they're doing. That's why, Dario, we're banking on all the interviews right now, getting ready for that time.
Yeah, right now we're doing 2 a week, and I actually just check the calendar, and if we stop at yours, like we don't film any other ones, we have enough to keep us going once a week till about end of July.
August.
Amazing.
Yeah.
End of July. So
good for you guys.
And I
Yeah,
haven't
it's
even
sweet.
done any outreach since like the latest batch, which was like almost a month ago. I got to get that started again.
That's great, and that's like we were doing it in the office and in the studio, and it's like you guys just doing it remote like this. It's like you said, it's like it's quick and easy. It's simple. It gets the content created to share it, and it's that's the most important thing is just getting it done.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys have a dope setup though. Like it's
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
looks
really
nice.
awesome. I'm gonna give you props for that. We unfortunately we
Appreciate
can't
it.
really invite like almost all of our guests because they're all outside of Toronto.
Like you, like, do you want to
Toronto.
fly into Toronto for
That's
in
another
person?
thing, right? Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
COVID shifted it. It really like made this normal and a much easier possibility for sure.
hmm Okay, so I guess let's talk a bit about the future of your company. Like now you're kind of running the whole thing. How was that like actually when you did buy out your partner and now it's just you running it?
Yeah.
Like, did you like were you like nervous or were you like, okay, now I kind of get to implement my vision of where this is supposed to be? Like, was it just easy to
Yeah.
easy to do or?
What did you miss? Or what did you miss maybe even?
I don't know if I missed anything. It's like, cause I do have John, like our creative director, who's part owner of the business now, as well. So being able to have like that person as a sounding board and bounce ideas off of is so helpful. And it's it was a bit of I don't think I was nervous at the beginning. It was definitely some more pressure and then some intensity, but I enjoy that. And it provided a little bit of freedom as well, just based on that conflict and just like disagreement that kind of had disappeared. So we were able to just make decisions faster and quicker and just move forward without needing to have so many talks and conversations to question things. It's just kind of let's make a decision, move forward, see if it works. Yes, great. No, why not? Okay, let's make that adjustment and change. Let's move forward again. So it's been good. But then like 7 months after that kind of happened, COVID hit and then everything changed. So it was a whole new thing to figure out. And as you guys know, it's like just everything kind of stopped. And then it's like, okay, how do we get things going? What can we do? What can we change? Do we need to modify what we do like altogether? Luckily, like video, it's like one of the most powerful tools you can use to communicate. So we were able to kind of ride it, and things started to pick up in summer, fall 2020, and kind of maintained from there.
Interesting. And then in terms of, I guess, like where you guys are heading into in the future, like what do you guys have planned?
The plan is to kind of stay the course, just keep. The goal is to just take on bigger and bigger projects. So we're shying away from that like smaller project retainer model, just based on the skill set that we have, the team that we have, the interest that the team has, and what they're wanting to do with their creative skills. So just trying to find bigger clients, have more creative abilities to flex what we can do, and yeah, just keep going from there. Maybe take on. John wants to put together a feature, so might explore that in the next year or so here, and yeah, just keep doing work that we're proud of, and keep working with people that appreciate it and are excited to share it, and just yeah, just create good stuff.
It's funny because usually a lot of companies want to get more retainer like projects, but you're kind of shying away from that.
Consistency. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a dance. Like when you have that smaller retainer consistent like work, yes, that's there. But also if you get like some big projects that take that amount of time as well, it's still, those budgets are locked in for you to be able to use and have that time. So it's just a different model and a different structure of how to do things. And what we find is that working with smaller clients, there's a lot of management, a lot of time management with things, like working with many, like lots of different clients versus just having like time to focus on a few larger clients in a way.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on what resources you have available and what works for you. You know, like every company has different definitions of what they find in terms of being a successful model for them or what works for them. And like you said, what you laid out is like, yes, although you have the consistency with those retainer projects, you know, for you guys, you see that as potentially a crutch if you get an opportunity like that other one that's almost $1 million, you know, that's going to take up all that time. Meanwhile, you're going to be working on a project that's, say, maybe 20,000 a month, you know, depending on how much it entails. It's like, oh, I don't want to turn down that big project, you know, to be working on the smaller one. And it's all about,
if we could get a $20,000
a
month retainer, I'd be happy to take that on for sure. So,
what, sorry?
I said, if we got a $20,000 a month retainer project, we'd be happy to take that on for sure. But yeah,
for sure. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I'm just spitballing examples.
So
we always love that.
No, but it really comes down to the team you have, the skills you have, and just how to structure it, and you play with it, and it's gonna like fluctuate and change over time, and we're constantly assessing of how we're doing things, and it's when you're going for these bigger projects, it does create that, like, those times of scarcity, and like if you haven't won some big ones in a while, it's just like, okay, like cash is getting a little bit tight, like how do we need to shift things up, like what, it really changes. But if you can keep that consistent, and we're starting new marketing efforts now to just be able to approach and find new clients to introduce them to our name. And I appreciate you guys like having me on to introduce us to your network as well. So it's ever evolving, ever changing, and I'm just hoping this pandemic doesn't just completely relapse and come back. But I think we're out of it. Yeah.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
In terms of like the new type of marketing you're doing, is it more like an indirect sales approach? So like you're not really approaching leads with like, hey, well, I noticed you don't have, as an example, I noticed you don't have a video, you could do it like that, or more like maybe like educating them on something that might help them, and then kind of like indirectly selling yourself.
It's like trying to provide value to people is always like the best way to go about things. We're doing some email outreach, trying to like look through LinkedIn as to like who do we know that is working with people that we would like to work with, to try and create those connections and things like that. And just SEO, and like it's been a big driver for us. Instagram and Facebook, it's hard to have measurables on that. Like we don't, it's not likely that someone's going to like see a video and be like, hey, I have $20,000 or $50,000 to spend on a video. Like let's talk. Like but it does keep you top of mind in that way. So we are running some ads and things like that, but it's when you're getting into the bigger budgets, it's trying to build that trust over time and just create introductions, have good conversations, and hopefully something comes up in the next 3, 6, 12 months that we have an opportunity to show what we're capable of.
You got to do a bunch of different things. You know, you got to do
SEO.
SEO is king. But
it's the baseline.
You gotta have like your AdWords, your Insta ads, your LinkedIn ads are a little expensive, actually. I don't know if you're going to do that, but LinkedIn ads, if you have the budget for it, that LinkedIn ads might use up that whole $800K budget you had for that project just to run a week's worth of ads.
To show it to 10 people.
Show it to 10 people. All right, $800K, pay up.
No, you got to be specific with it.
And then just creating like, marketable content, something that gives clients values. Like that's what Kyrill and I are trying to figure out right now, is in terms of branding for our company, like for Lapse, like what kind of content could we create for clients or leads that can give them values. That's what we're trying to figure out right now, is like trying to see it from like a client's or leads point of view. Like if I'm randomly scrolling on LinkedIn or whatever, like what would be something that would draw my attention? And I don't know if like it would have to be like a mix of like an ad and then like something else maybe. So like, I don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. I think everyone's trying to figure that out.
Absolutely.
One thing we noticed, especially during the pandemic, because everything stopped, we were looking at the work that we had created beforehand, and all of it was client work, right? Which is great. You know, we and it's good to continue focusing on the work for your clients. You have to always make sure you're doing that. But at the same time, you should also devote some time to working on yourself, working on your business, create content for you, something that, as Dario mentioned, you know, stuff that puts you on the map, stuff that you can provide value to your clients, your network, you know, and then from there you build your own library of content for your business rather than, you know, only having client work, which a lot of the time we can't even show all the time, right? You know, there's a lot of that red tape where it's like, yep,
NDA.
NDAs, and then it's like, great. So what, have we not been doing anything for the last 3 years? No, we've been busy, but this is another way to potentially do that as well.
It's just hard because you're juggling like 50 hats, and then like it's time consuming. So even if you're juggling 50 hats, and then you also have to figure out like what this new branding approach is going to be, and then even if you do figure it out, you got to go through with it, and then, you know,
More
another fire
tasks,
starts
more
here,
tasks.
and then it's just time consuming. And but you know, it's whoever figures it out like reaps the benefits of that, right? So
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's chicken and the egg. It's something that I've really noticed, like especially like with my ADHD, and just like when I need to create time for myself to be able to slow things down, to think and make the right decisions, not more decisions. So having people in place to do things where I know I'm going to procrastinate, I know I'm going to struggle to get it done in a quick manner. It's just like I don't need to prove to the team or myself that I'm like can do that. It's like pass it on, because I have like so many things that I need to do, but I need to like focus on the real important things to be able to move that forward.
I don't think you have ADHD. I think you're just a business owner. I think we all go through
Yeah.
that.
You're 300 times more likely to be a business owner if you have
300.
ADHD.
That's part of our job description. Can't focus
I
on
know.
one task.
Yeah.
You try to, but then especially if you have a business partner, then it's like you're working on one and then the other one's like, hey, we need to do this and we forgot, or we need to still do this. It's like, okay, hold on, let me pause this. What is the emergency?
Yeah, I know. My wife's been great with that in the last little bit. Just she's been my like sounding board to write down my ideas, what I'm thinking through, versus just me throwing all of that at John and him just being like, oh, what's going on? Like, so trying to create that barrier of the ideas in my head to what's realistic and what we can act on now.
You just gotta add them to
Right.
like a Google Keep note, but then the problem becomes there's too many notes. You can't sort through them, or like some of them
gotta-
don't
They
make
just
sense.
vanish and disappear anyways. It's just like turns into a blur of nothing.
It's like
You
trying to
gotta have
remember
those
a dream.
discussions.
Okay. I think that's good. I think we hit the 1 hour mark. Kyrill, do the honors.
Well, Geoff, thanks again for joining us on the show. You know, like we really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences, you know, and you know, especially some of those very personal stories that you mentioned, you know, and honestly, thanks again.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me, and I hope you got some value out of it, and I hope your viewers and listeners get something out of it too. So I appreciate it, guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.